is brought to you by the amazing people over at Chop Chili. Guys, this is personally my favorite chili brand here in the state of New Mexico, and you can find them online at chopchilico.com. You can also find them all across the state of New Mexico at Sprouts, Albertsons, Smith's, and a bunch of other stores in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Las Cruces. I believe they're even down in El Paso now. They sell red and green chili, of course. My personal favorite is this blend of red and green, and they also sell online frozen bags of green chili. So again, go to chopchilico.com to get yourself some amazing chili today. Now back to the podcast. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the amazing people over at Chop Chili. Guys, this is personally my favorite chili brand here in the state of New Mexico, and you can find them online at chopchilico.com. You can also find them all across the state of New Mexico at Sprouts, Albertsons, Smith's, and a bunch of other stores in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Las Cruces. All right. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Noah Vargas, and I will be your host this morning. I got a lot of cool stuff. Well, I wouldn't say cool, but interesting things that I want to talk to you guys about this morning. Let me just make sure all of this is working properly. Yeah. All right, we're good to go. What's up? Good morning. So I know I said a month and a half ago or so that I'd be doing this at night, but quite frankly, after that episode last week, it's become very clear to me that I should be doing it in the morning, no matter how much I'd like to do one late at night. I want to build this audience, and I want to build this brand as fast as I can. So, with that being said, I hope you guys can hear me, because I can't hear me, and I have no idea why. There we go. There's my voice. All right. Okie dokie. So before we get into today's episode, just thank you all for joining. Happy Batman Day to those who celebrate, which is probably none of you. That's totally fine. Happy Batman Day to those who celebrate. Once I get this episode done and then I get all of my adult responsibilities taken care of, I will be reading this big guy that I got in the mail about a month ago. Very excited to read this. It's Batman War Games. Never read it before, which is rare because it's a post-crisis story of Batman's that I've never read, but very excited to check that out today. All right. So, I got 3 stories I want to talk to you guys about today. 2 of them are being very widely covered in the news. They've absolutely absorbed the news cycle, but there's one that hasn't. I'm seeing a lot of people post about it, but I haven't seen a lot of news outlets talking about it, and I think it deserves it to do. I'm also seeing a lot of misinformation about this story. And so I'd like to, as much as I can for individuals that watch this show, I'd like to clear some of that up. So if you didn't hear last week, there were 2 lynchings that happened I'm going to try to stay as, fact-based as I can. So there were 2 bodies in the state of Mississippi that were found hung by trees by their necks. So, that being said, there were 2. The first individual that was found, I just had it up. I am so sorry. Here we go. Okay. So, one was found at Delta State University in Mississippi. I should have had this pulled up already. I had another statistic about Delta State pulled up, but Delta State University is in Cleveland, Mississippi, for what it's worth. And yeah, it just seems like a regular college. I couldn't find a whole lot. And I'll be completely honest with you guys. I couldn't find a whole lot of information about this story in general. I mean, I found a couple things that I'll get into here, but I didn't really find like a a reliable source on an autopsy. I'll be trying to look for that this morning while we're doing the podcast. But I will say this. There is some, and again, I found one thing about the autopsy, but it just doesn't seem reliable to me. Okay, I'll get into the facts before I get into anything that I find fishy. Okay, and there's a key piece of evidence that I could not find last night, but I had found it posted earlier, and then every post that I saw about it got deleted off Twitter and Instagram. So I'm just gonna say it, and you can take my word for what it's worth. Two bodies found in Mississippi. The first one was around 7 a.m. on last Monday, so that would have been the 16th, right? 15th. So, the first one was a student from Delta State University. His name was Trey Reed. He was 21 years old. He was found hanging from a tree on the campus university. Now, what is interesting about this, he was found, the tree he was found hanging from, it was at a part of the campus where there wasn't any like security camera footage directly on, like it was in a blind spot, right? So I think that's interesting. We'll keep that in mind for later. When the police initially respond, they take his body down, they bring it to a medical examiner. Right from the bat, the police are saying that there is no foul play that is being suspected. It seems like this kid was, just from auxiliary like interviews and reports I was seeing, it seemed that he was like a friend of people. Like he wasn't like a loner per se, but he wasn't super popular. Nobody was out to like get him or anything like that, according to these guys. And they initially were just running with the idea that it was suicide, right? And again, we're staying with the reported facts right now before I get to things that I've found and just my own thoughts. So then there was a second body that was found hanging in Vicksburg. Now, this is where a lot of the misinformation that I'm seeing posted on, at least on my timeline, on both Facebook and Instagram. Those are the two main social media platforms that I use. Again, after the last week and a half of Charlie Kirk's assassination, I'm just staying away from like Twitter, and I'll get into that later, or I'll get to why about that a little bit later when I talk about the alleged assassin. But just Twitter is just a fucking cesspool. And I love politics, but I got to do something for myself, man. But maybe I'll start using it more. Who knows? Anyway, so second body that was found in Vicksburg. Now, a lot of the misinformation that I'm seeing get put around is that a lot of people are posting that 2 black men died. Not true. The second individual that was found hanging from a tree, his name was Corey Zucatis. Now, I'm not saying that it's like better or anything like that he wasn't black. I mean, a guy still died. But the only thing, literally the only thing that I could find about this guy is that that's his name. I found a couple of sources saying that he was a homeless guy in and out of shelters, not a whole lot of information on him, and that he's dead. And that he's white. Like that, those are the only things that I could find. The latest reporting that I'm finding is that they're waiting for that his body did get taken for an autopsy, and they're waiting to find out what's going on. But there is just not, unfortunately, there is just not a lot of reporting that I could find. So if anyone watching this, whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching this afterwards, please feel free to let me know if I'm missing anything or if I need to have new information, because I'm just not finding anything. And I should have said this in the outset. I am going to keep the phone lines open after I finish each story. So if there is anybody watching that would like to call in, please feel free. You are more than welcome to. I'll open that up here in a second. So, yeah, I just couldn't find a lot about the second guy that died. I found a little bit more about Trey, but not a lot about the other guy. As far as I know, his body is off to a coroner's office, and we'll wait to see what happens. Unfortunately, this seems like a story that will get pushed to the wayside. Now, a couple of interesting things that I want to talk about the first man that was found dead. Now, like I said, he a young black man at the college. Now, when the police initially got to the scene, they from what I was reading and from like small interviews that I was seeing, like local police state or local news station interviews, from what I was seeing, the narrative was that the police was just running with, "Hey, it's a suicide, no foul play." They were immediately reporting that they could not find any bodily damage other than obviously a broken neck that is consistent with a lynching, right? Normally you're going to find a lot of bruising around the arms and legs, of course the torso too, but lynching is a very ugly thing, and there is an ugly history of this in the United States. But the police were just running with that. They're like, "Hey, there's no bruising on the arms, there's no bruising on the legs, no broken bones, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff." But as I started digging into this, well, let's just start with the obvious, right? I looked up suicide statistics in the United States. Now, I'm getting this from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and I'm also getting this from the CDC. So let's take a little look-see, shall we? So the CDC report that I'm reading right now is from 2022, so it's relatively recent, right? Now, age-adjusted suicide rates for non-Hispanic white people increased 51% from 2000 to 2018 and then declined 7% through 2020. For non-Hispanic black people, the age-adjusted suicide rates actually declined from 2000 to 2007 and then increased 53% up to 2020. The age-adjusted suicide rates for Hispanic were stable from 2000 to 2012 and then increased 29% to 2020. But here's something that's really important to take note, and then my second source corroborates this. Throughout the period, the rates for non-Hispanic white people ranged 2 to 3 times higher than for non-Hispanic black and Hispanic people. And then they show a graph here where essentially I suck at math. I remember nothing from math class, but I think this is like the y-axis. I don't know. This axis is deaths per 1,000, right? And it has a trend at 2,000 at about, and so it's like, this is the amount of people that are dead. This is the timeline going from 2000 to 2020. And it starts at 2000, and white people, mainly men, as we know, right? White guys are at about 120,000, give or take. 130,000, and then it goes up to 2002, dips a little bit, and it just basically keeps climbing up until 2019, and then drops off a little bit into 2020, but they still, it's significantly higher, right? So it's starting at about 130,000. But when we're looking at the trend line for black people, it's about 5,500. Maybe 50,000. You might want to. You could argue 55,000 to 60,000 people, but it's very low. There's a significant gap in 2000. It looks like 2007 between Hispanic and black people, with black people still being lower. But even when it shows the trend rate climbing in 2018, it's still significantly lower. It doesn't even break the 100,000 mark. It stays at about the 50 to 55,000 mark. Now, when you go over to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, it is saying that white males accounted for 68.13% of suicide deaths in 2023, and I didn't see anything. Let's see here we go. So for black people, it looks like it is, in 2023, it was only about just under, like 15. This is only like 15,000 in 2023 for black males. and then a little under 4,000, or just over 3,000, I'm sorry, for black women. They are the third, if you're going up, right? So it basically goes white people, most suicides, Hawaiian Native, Pacific Islanders, American Indian, Alaskan, so Native Americans, black people, multicultural, and then Asian. Then if you go down to a more defined graph where it's breaking it down by males and females based on that race criteria, we see that black males are still the third lowest. Like first lowest, second lowest, third lowest. My point in bringing all this up is that it is not a common statistic. It is not a common stereotype. I think that's fair to say. I don't think that's any kind of charged statement. It's not a stereotype of black people to kill themselves. It's just not something that demographic does. And from what I just closed out the things, but the number one number one method of suicide in the United States is by a firearm. And look, let's just call a spade a spade. Black people don't hang themselves from a tree. Like, he's been on the podcast a couple of times. The second time hasn't been released yet, but the second episode was released under AJ De Leon, his podcast, Last Laugh. Josh Kenyatta, he has a great joke about suicide by cop, right? It was like, that's definitely something cops made up, right? Like, you know, he does it way better than I do. He has a great joke about it. But my point is that black people don't kill themselves, and black people do not hang themselves from a tree. Like, it's just not a thing. I'm not a black person, but I can just ascertain that, like, black people don't do that. Now, the posts that I was mentioning that I found on both Instagram and Twitter that were both taken down, like, I couldn't find them again. It was in my saved, and I just couldn't find it. The cousin of, I want to get his name right. I apologize. I want to get his name right. Of Trey Reed. The cousin of Trey Reed. He either was one of the people to find the bodies or find his body, or he saw a video of the body, because there was a video of the body. Now that got taken down from Twitter pretty quick. I saw that video. Very, very disturbing. Very, very disturbing. But the cousin did a short interview and had their own social media post, I believe, where the cousin was like, no, my cousin had bruises on his arms and his legs, and it looked like his right arm was broken, which is obviously consistent with a lynching. So there's that. Now, again, I just really want to state this again. If this sounds hollow, it's because it is. I just couldn't find out a lot about this. I'm trying to give you guys as much information as I have. Now, The Guardian, I think, is the most recent article that I could find. Well, The Guardian and USA Today. Now, the body of Trey went and had an autopsy performed, and the official findings of this autopsy, and the autopsy was conducted on the 17th, it says that they are ruling it a suicide. Now, because of this, here's an official statement from the medical examiner's office. Findings were consistent with the initial investigation, determining the cause of death to be hanging in the manner of death as a suicide. Final toxicology reports are pending. It may take 2 to 4 weeks to complete. Now, it's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. Goodness, sorry, my allergies are killing me this morning. That's part of the reason why I was late. That and my damn coffee maker couldn't make a fucking cup of coffee. But it's possible that this was a suicide. It's very possible. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not trying to make everything a conspiracy. It just doesn't seem right to me. I don't know. Just my spidey sensors are going off. If I find more information about this, I'll bring this up on next week's episode, live episode rather. But it just doesn't track. But they are ruling this as a suicide. And now, obviously, this suicide. This is the last thing I'm going to say about it. Other than I just don't buy it. I frankly, I don't buy it. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I missed in these articles, but again, there's just not a lot of information. The family of Trey Reed, they retained a civil rights attorney. His name is Ben Crump. And good on the family. A quote from him is that they cannot accept vague conclusions. Good for them. And the FBI said on Wednesday is prepared to investigate if during and their quote from the FBI is if during the course of local investigation information comes to light of a potential federal violation. And it's good to note that at Delta State University, 40% of those students are black. That just doesn't sit right with me. Good on the family. You know, keep them in your prayers. I mean, this is certainly a terrible time for them. That just doesn't sit right with me. Now, what I will say is, obviously, this is coming in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. A lot of people, including myself, we were kind of just waiting to see what the right retaliation was going to be, if any, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. There is nothing here that tells me this was a retaliatory attack. There is absolutely no connections that I could find between this person and Charlie Kirk, this person and this university and Utah, the University of Utah, whatever, the UVU, where the assassination took place. There was just absolutely no connections that I could find personally. Again, I'm open to interpretation. I'm open to conflicting theories or not even conflicting theories. I'm open to conflicting facts about this, things that come to light. And I'll cover that in a later episode, but there's nothing right now that I could find. Now, an interesting thing, too, is that a lot of people, again, the misinformation was that a lot of people were saying not only 2 black men were found, I also saw that these 2 were connected, okay? That these 2 were in somehow association with each other. Not true. Black college student, white homeless guy, couldn't find anything there. One took place at Delta State University. Another took place in Vicksburg. I looked up the distance. That's a 2-hour drive. It's 108.6 miles away. No connections there. I don't see any connections between the 2 hangings. I don't see any connections between this and the Kirk assassination. Unfortunately, it was just an ugly incident that happened, and some people picked it up. Rightfully so. I'm not saying they shouldn't have. But, I mean, with a situation like this, kind of like I was saying with Kirk, I hope it's a lone gunman with Kirk. It's proving to probably not be. I hope these are 2 suicides, and that one of them is not. I hope they're not either one of them race-related, but if I had to guess, genuinely, if I had to guess, I'm looking at Trey Reed's was probably a lynching, an ugly, ugly lynching. And then the other one was probably a suicide, but at worst, it's somebody who hated a homeless person. But, like, that doesn't make any sense either. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Not a lot of information. That's all I know. Ugly, ugly, ugly shit, man. All right. So, let's get into actually, before we get into the alleged assassin, because I do have some things I want to talk about here a little bit. I'll open this up to, what's it called? To calls. If anybody wants to call in on the Instagram. It's right here. I'm still getting good at this. It's right here. Feel free to call in. My Instagram is open. I'll leave it open here for a couple minutes. I know there's a delay. Let's put it that way. All right, let's look at the chat here in a second. Let's see what we got here in the chat. All right, so Bale is the GOAT. Unfortunately, that is not true. Sorry, he's just not. Very briefly, Batman Begins is my favorite Batman movie ever made. It's the best of that trilogy for sure. But after that, The Dark Knight is basically just a Joker movie. Batman is one of the least interesting parts of that movie, and certainly if you look at the course of the 3 films, Bruce Wayne is the least interesting part of all of those movies, just unfortunately. He has his moments, but which really sucks. Like, I don't like shitting on Christian Bale. I don't, because he's definitely the best actor to play Batman. But in the effort to make that series hyper realistic, they really lost a lot of the charm of Batman, I guess I would say. Like, I tried rewatching The Dark Knight Rises a couple weeks ago, and I couldn't get through it. That movie is just not good. The fight scenes across all 3 of those movies are dog shit. I'm sorry. They're all dog shit. Like, the best fight scene in any of those movies is the initial one in the docks, where it's like you're seeing Batman from the goons' perspective, and that's a lot of fun. But other than that, it's bad. It's just objectively not good. It's one of the biggest. There's 2 really big sins they make in those movies. The first one is the downgrade from the Batman Begins suit to the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises suit. It's just bad. And then the fact that they turn Gotham City, like, they give Gotham City like a personality in Batman Begins. And then in Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, it's just Chicago. So that kind of sucks. What's up, Evan? What's up, Tyler? We will get to that for sure. We will get to the Kimmel stuff. Trust me, we will get to the Kimmel stuff here shortly. All right. No callers, moving on. All right. So, I did want to touch on some stuff that's coming out about the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk. Now, there is, how do I put this? There's a lot of really great report. Like the whole point of me doing a podcast and doing this form of podcasting, so I'm still going to do the guests. Don't get me wrong. I have an amazing episode coming out on Monday with Jared Ostrom. The palate cleanser we all need. Jared's a hilarious comedian, great sketch writer. Like he's the palate cleanser we need. I'm very excited to put that episode out. But the whole point of me doing this style of podcasting, this live kind of like talking about politics, talking about the news, is where my whole thought process is like, where can I add something unique, but like what can I say? It's not really being said a ton, or what do I think should be highlighted? And also, what information can I bring forward? And quite frankly, Candace Owens is knocking it out of the park. Her numbers are skyrocketing because of it. So if you want to learn more about the Charlie Kirk assassination, I highly encourage you to watch her episodes. I think Nick Fuentes is doing an amazing job. I think Dave Smith is doing a great job of adding a kind of a neutral perspective that's not highly conspiratorial. Not that Nick is. I mean, now Candace is like 100% down the Israel did it train. Like, she definitely is. She's also getting a lot of great information from both the family of the killer and people that live in the actual people that live in the neighborhood. And she's doing great reporting. But a couple of things that I really wanted to cover that are going to help us transition, no pun intended, that's going to help us transition into the Jimmy Kimmel incident. So, killer's in custody. We all know about this. His name's Tyler Robinson. He was living with a trans partner, a biological male, transitioning from male to female. That person's name is Lance Twiggs. And of course, this is getting hijacked and it's becoming this left versus right. And this is what got Kimmel in trouble. And we'll get to that. But there's a lot of narratives going out there that that Tyler Robinson was a groyper. For those who don't know what a groyper is, it's basically a radicalized follower of Nick Fuentes. And there's this whole, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but there's this whole groyper wars incident years back between Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes, where a lot of his supporters that were obviously on the far right are going against Charlie Kirk because of his outspoken support for Israel. I think it's largely been debunked now. We know that he wasn't a far-right person. He might have come from a far-right family. A lot of reports are saying that he was from a far-right family. But what we're seeing from both... Because I think the best way to describe Tyler Robinson was that this person was what was the, I just had the term and I lost it, son of a bitch. He's always online. There's a term for it and I just lost it. That's embarrassing. He was, it's like something online, starts with a C, like continuously online, but there's a better term for it. Fuck me. If you guys know what I'm talking about, put it in the comments or in the chat. But if you look at like and we went over a lot of this in last week's episode, so I'm not going to retread a lot of this ground, but a lot of things that he was putting on the bullets, living with a trans partner, a lot of these things are just not consistent with what a groiper would be or what a far-right person would be. And chronically, thank you, Evan. Thank you. Chronically online. He was chronically online. This is pretty contingent with somebody that's on the far left. Now, look, am I saying that there's no people on the right that love them some trannies? Terminally online is another great way to put it. A lot of people, I'm sure there's some people on the right that love themselves some transgenders. There's a lot of people on the right that loves them some gay people. I mean, one of the funniest things, I've been trying to write a joke about it, like a unique, funny joke about it. But when they have the GOP conventions last year, the graphs, like the statistics for Grindr just like skyrocketed in that area geographically. So like we know there's a lot of closeted gay people on the right. So, you know, the call-in number is just the Instagram. So go to the Instagram, chat with me on Instagram and call. I'll open up my Instagram for callers after this subject. So anyway, not a far right person from what I can tell. Now, what's interesting about the trans boyfriend is that this person is being reported actually helped with turning in Tyler to the feds. The text messages have come out. They're clearly fucking doctored. I mean, I'm going to read a few of the text messages here, but it's so clearly a fucking Fed that came out and wrote these. It's so clearly a Fed. It's not even funny. So these are the text messages that they were able to get. Tyler Robinson, drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard. Lance Twiggs. Now we're gonna be going back and forth, right? Lance Twiggs, what? You're joking, right? Now the note that was allegedly under the keyboard, it said something to, I couldn't find a direct quote of the letter, but the letter said something to the effect of, I'm going to kill Charlie Kirk, or I'm going to end Charlie Kirk, something to like, yeah. It smells fishy. It smells a little fishy to me. So look under my keyboard. Lance Twiggs says, what? You're joking, right? I'm going to lower my volume a little bit so when I start yelling, it doesn't blow out my speakers. Okay, is that? Okay, we're good. Okay. That's how a one-man show tests his tech, by the way. I don't have a full-time producer. All right. So, what? You're joking, right? I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem. This is from Tyler. For a little longer yet. Shouldn't be long until... Oh, and I think what's interesting, too, about these is that we have no timestamps. Now, Candace Owens does a really deep dive into it, but, you know, meh, no timestamps. Text messages don't have timestamps, do they? They don't have timestamps? The fucking... God. Kash Patel's running a fucking circus over there. I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you. Lance, you weren't the one who did it, right? Bunch of question marks. Tyler, I am. I'm sorry. Lance, I thought I caught the person. No. They grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I plan to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's still one vehicle lingering. Why? Why did I do it? Yeah, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it yet. How long have you been planning this? About a bit over a week, I believe. Can't get close to it, but there's a squad car parked by it. I want to see, all of this is just like young 20-year-old. I'm not a young 20-year-old. I'm in my late 20s. I'm about to be 30 years old. But even I know that like younger kids don't talk like this. I'm having to like stick with it so that I can use the exact verbiage, because I don't use this fucking lingo. I don't say vehicle. I don't say retrieve. You know? There was a... Here we go. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The fucking messages are mostly a meme. If I see notices a bulge, ooh woo, end quote, on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm gonna have to leave it. That really fucking sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. IDK. I think that was a $2,000 2K scope. Further messages from Tyler. Delete this message. My dad wants photos of the rifle. Okay. This is where it gets kind of weird too. From Lance, you are all I worry about, love. I'm much worried about you. Don't talk to media, please. Don't take any interviews or comments. If any police ask questions, ask for a lawyer. Clearly fucking doctored. I mean, nobody speaks like that. Now, what is interesting too is initially there were some messages pulling out of Discord, and Discord had immediately come out and was like, hey, we don't have any record of him planning a murder or anything like that. Basically, leave us out of it. And then 2 days ago, Discord came out and said, no, we do have messages. Now, all of this is largely speculatory, in my opinion. Why would they retroactively do that? Were they pressured by the feds? Were they pressured by the administration? Were they trying to play some kind of like verbal judo where it's like, well, we don't have anything about them planning it, but the messages that they brought out said that maybe we do have messages about them admitting to it. Who the fuck knows? I have no idea. But it's all very again, it's fishy. It's very fishy, these things. And I think what's important to note too, this is why I have to take notes for these things, so I just don't ramble on like a fucking mongoloid. Tyler Robinson, as of recording, like again, I'm gonna look it up right now to confirm because things might have changed, but I looked this up last night. Has Tyler Robinson admitted to the assassination of Kirk? Because what I was reading is that he still has not himself admitted to it, and he's using his Fifth Amendment. He's pleading the Fifth. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything about, like, I'll even ask ChatGPT. Has Tyler, oh my goodness, I'll try to use proper grammar. Has Tyler Robinson admitted to killing Charlie Kirk? Okay, so even from ChatGPT, it says yes, but there's credible reporting that he has admitted or at least implied that he was the person. So it's pulling things from the messages, but he himself because at the end of it, it says, if you want, I can pull up the exact transcripts or quotes from those messages. You can judge how strong the quote admission is. So there's no flat out, like, I did it coming from Tyler Robinson. I was reading some reports earlier this week that was saying that he is not cooperating. He's just pleading the Fifth Amendment and going through the motions. He had his initial, like, court hearing over Zoom a couple days ago, but nothing concrete. And there's an interesting thing that Candace was reporting on, that there's a new picture of him that he went to a Dairy Queen. He went to a Dairy Queen a couple hours after the assassination, when allegedly, according to the FBI reports, he was supposed to have been waiting in his Dodge Charger, one of those two, waiting outside trying to get his rifle. But in reality, I guess there's an actual picture of him, and I saw it. There is a picture of this guy at a Dairy Queen. So those aren't lining up. I don't know. The feds are really fucking this one up. Covered that. Okay, so let's go over the charges. I'm not going to read the entire document. You can find it for yourself, or if you'd like, just message me and I'll send it to you. These are screenshots of the documents coming from Kagan.Dunlap on Instagram. So count 1, aggravated murder, a capital felony in violation of Utah code, blah, 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 blah. Tyler James Robinson intentionally and knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstance, and the defendant knowingly created a great risk of death. Okay. And they are seeking I'm not going to read the whole verbiage, but they are seeking the death penalty against this guy, should he be the individual. Victim targeting enhancement, in violation of Utah code, Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk, because of Tyler James Robinson's perception of belief regarding Kirk's political expression. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury. There's a victim targeting enhancement under that. And then there's also, because of the discharge of the firearm, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, because obviously there were underage individuals at that event. And also we know that Charlie his 3-year-old kids watched him die. So I'm glad they're hitting him with that too, should he be the individual. Obstruction of justice, second-degree felony in violation of Utah code, on September 10th. Defendant Tyler James Robinson with intent to hinder, delay, prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding the conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, concealed or removed the firearm used to shoot Charlie Kirk, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or a first-degree felony. Count 4, obstruction of justice. Basically the same thing, just with some more verbal stuff. Tampering with a witness, count 5 and 6, and then count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child. And then there's a probable cause statement under that, and then it just goes into more detail about the shooting, and then the surveillance investigation, expanded crime scene investigation, Washington County investigation, stuff about the roommate. Got the text there. They did search his residence. Let me see if there's anything interesting there. During the search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in near the rifle in UVU. Police also found several targets with bullet holes in Robinson's home. So he was training, it would appear. Again, we'll see more when it comes out, but what are you going to do, man? It is interesting. I just wanted to note this. We brought this up last week, but again, there is still next to no social media presence of Tyler Robinson, aside from like a Steam library. And for those who don't know what that is, Steam is the application you use to buy video games for your PC, which would then imply the Helldivers connection. But there's no social media presence. I think that's important to bring up because that was the same case as with the shooter from Butler, Pennsylvania, when Trump almost got assassinated. Now, a couple of interesting notes that I found about Lance Twiggs, who is, again, the transgender partner of Tyler Robinson. I'm just going to read from my notes here. His family, so Lance's family, deleted a lot of their social media pages. from what they could find, from what the feds could find about Lance Twiggs, he looked like he was trying to be a pro gamer. His Steam name did change from Lance to Luna in 2024 in December. So even his Steam name was changing genders, it appears. He had a small TikTok page. They found a Reddit comment from him in 2022 where it was saying that they were voting for Biden. And then I already talked about the Tyler being a groiper. The only evidence that they really have of Tyler being a groiper is there was a resurfaced image from either 2021 or 2019 where he was in an Adidas tracksuit. And those of you that know about the groiper movement know about the like the Pepe the Frog memes and how Pepe would be like dressed up in the Adidas tracksuit. But that's some pretty bullshit evidence in my opinion. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So now we're going to transition into the Kimmel thing. So okay, so the right, obviously, how do I even want to start this? I guess we can start with Pam Bondi because that happened first. So Pam Bondi, in all of this dumbass's wisdom, decided to make a statement about hate speech. Now, don't take it from me. We're going to play this in her own words, okay? So let me pull up the video here. And again, I'll let you guys hear it in her own words.
Now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society. Do you see more?
I'm going to replay it because Instagram sucks.
And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society. Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action? We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society. Do you see?
Okie dokie. So, listen, as many of you guys know, I am not a lawyer. I am not a formally educated man very far. But what I can say about that is that she is fucking wrong. Now, I have a lot of things to say about the Jimmy Kimmel stuff. And again, I'm going to follow my notes. And because again, I'm going to start from the facts first. I'm going to start from the facts and then I'm going to get into my interpretation of the facts. Now, I'll expand upon this, but I just want to make this point now so I can reestablish where I'm coming from. Free speech covers hate speech. Sorry. My 2 points that I'm really going to be driving home here is that free speech covers hate speech and that the market, the free market, the people need to settle this on their own, not the government. And I'm going to explain that more later. Now, as we all know, Jimmy Kimmel got the specific verbiage that is the most accurate to this situation is, let me see if there's anything new in the chats, actually, before I get into this. Yeah, yeah, it is written by AI. Grok analyzed it as fake. No shit. Okay, I'm down for Helldivers. Of course, I'm down for Helldivers later. Come on. Super Earth needs us. So I am going to be in the chat here. If anybody would like to call in, now is the time. Let's see. If anybody would like to call in, you're more than welcome to. I'll leave it over here for a couple seconds. I will leave this open for now. Yeah, it's just crazy that the feds actually think they could get away with that shit. That's just, I fucking can't with them. I really can't. I'll leave this open for another 60 seconds to what's it called, to account for the delay in YouTube. Oh. Actually, if you guys want to excuse me, I'm going to get a fresh cup of coffee. If you want to call in, message the Instagram right here. Message the Instagram, and we will. I'll take your calls. But if you want to excuse me, I'll be back in a minute. I'm just going to go get another cup of coffee. Okie dokie. Thank you all for sticking around. For those of you who did, I just want to say again, thank you to everyone who's tuning in and is in the chats. Tyler, Evan, my uncle, Louie, thank you guys very much. So thank you very much. I really am trying to build this podcast more. So please, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe, share, like it, put an actual comment down. It really does help. I'm trying to build this show as much as I can to reach as much people as I can. So any help that you can, if you feel inclined to share all this stuff, it genuinely helps with the algorithm and all of that. So thank you. Let's see what the chat has to say. Doesn't cover a heavy national TV show. Doesn't protect any job at all. And most companies have a behavioral and social media clauses. Okay, so those are important points, and we'll get there in a second. Because there's more to this story than what's being reported. So we'll get there in a second. So, just like I was saying earlier, Kimmel got fired. That's the narrative right now. But what I think is important to note is that the most accurate verbiage to use is that he is under a suspension right now. Now, I think the way that we're going to do this, or the way we're going to do this, is we're going to start at the top. We're going to work our way down. So this is all being headed by and taken charge by the FCC chair. His name is Brendan Carr. Now, for those who don't know what the FCC is the Federal Communications Commission. And basically what it is, it's the government agency. It's another three-letter agency that basically regulates entertainment and TV and stuff like that. So, I did some digging, and admittedly, I had some things sent to me because people were very nice. Let's put it that way. People were very nice, and they sent me some important things I should probably cover. And damn, I've been pretty successful at. I haven't had an energy drink in months, and it's great. Those things were gonna kill me eventually. We all know that. But I'm really starting to enjoy a good. If I've ever had coffee in the past, the rare times that I did, I would just take it black anyway. But I got this San Francisco brand coffee from Costco, and this shit's fucking good, dude. Oh, that's good stuff. And it's my last Zen, so I'm really trying to make this thing last before I can go hit a gas station. Okay, so Brendan Carr, head of the FCC. Now, it's important to understand that Brendan Carr was appointed to the FCC by Trump this year in 2025. He is a Trump appointee, so keep that in mind. Now, there is a giant media conglomerate called Nexstar. Now, it is called Nexstar Media Group. Now, Nexstar had agreed to buy another media group. They're in a deal negotiation process right now called Tegna for $6.2 billion. Now, what's important about Tegna is that Tegna, I had to make notes of this so that I could stay accurate as possible. Tegna is the second largest owner of NBC. It is also the fourth largest shareholder of ABC. Now, it is being, the reason why they're trying to go back and forth with this, and these things have to meet the FCC, which is effectively the U.S. government. And the reason for that is due to our, for lack of a better term, they're basically anti-monopoly laws. You can't just have one company buying up all the TV channels, buying up all the intellectual properties, buying all these things, because then they create a monopoly, all the money funnels to the top, and that's what they're trying to prevent, right? That's why these laws are in place. A good example of this was back in 2017, I want to say. Yeah, because I was at UNM at the time. Yeah. So in 2017, when Disney was buying 20th Century Fox, right, when they were buying up all of their IPs, this is when like the Fantastic Four was able to get used by Marvel, when the X-Men were able to start getting used, blah, 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 blah. At the time, Disney was trying to buy Fox Sports because Fox Sports was falling under 20th Century Fox. That was their whole conglomerate. And the FCC said no, which again, effective. Whenever I say FCC, just think federal government. When they were trying to buy all of that stuff, and then they were trying to buy Fox Sports, they were denied because then they would have bought too many IPs and have too much of a conglomerate on basically the airwaves, right? So that's kind of to keep that in. I hope that's a good point of reference. I hope they explained that properly. So, it requires the authority of the federal government. Now, allegedly, Nexstar called ABC and they complained about Jimmy Kimmel's comments, and we'll read those comments here shortly, to get him pulled so that they could gain favor with Trump. Now, I think because like Tyler was saying, you know, there is a First Amendment, but these companies have social media clauses, and the First Amendment doesn't stop a private. Basically, what he's saying, and I agree with this, is that the First Amendment doesn't stop a private company from firing you because you don't align with their values, or you're not basically doing because it's all voluntary working for these companies. You don't have to work for these companies, that kind of thing, and you get into personal liberty issues and blah 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 blah, right? However, the mind frame to look at this under, in my opinion, is that this is the federal government basically like pushing in, like they're putting their thumb on the proverbial scale of how these companies should be acting, and basically should be acting in alignment and in favor with the federal government, as compared to they should be acting in alignment with their customers, essentially the free market, right? That's why I brought that up earlier. The market needs to be taking care of this, not the federal government. Now, like I said, Brendan Carr, he was appointed by Trump, and now Brendan Carr through the FCC, they are claiming that all of this, let's start with what Jimmy Kimmel said. I'll read the quote, and again, I'll give my own personal thoughts on this after. I just want to get the facts out of the way, or the alleged facts. You know, because I don't want to get sued. my little creator ass. I don't want to get sued. So, this was during his opening monologue of the Jimmy Kimmel Show, where he said, quote, "The MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving." Okay, so that's basically what he said. Now, what's interesting here is, I'll get to my opinions later, but like, out of everything Jimmy Kimmel has said, that is some of the most benign shit ever. Like, it's exactly what you'd expect him to say. And we'll get to my thoughts later, but like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, come on. So, okay, so now the FCC, they are claiming that that statement is in violation of a couple of codes that I'll read here. And because of being in violation of these FCC codes, they would pull ABC's license to air. So this is not just a Jimmy Kimmel Show. This is every televised show that is under ABC, gone, right? Evaporated. Thanos snapped. Gone, right? So this is in violation under code 47 subsection, or sorry. Code 47 under USC subsection 312A or 309A, quote, "will serve the public interest." Public interest. Oh my God, my handwriting is so bad. So I was trying to get all this information down. Public interest, convenience, and necessity. And he's saying that he's going against the public interest by lying. Now, we'll get to this point here in a second. But if you have a working frontal cortex, you can understand the irony of them trying to pull Jimmy Kimmel because he's lying. That's basically what they're saying. The FCC is just now deciding, what a coincidence, they're just now trying to say that they're going to start pulling TV personalities for lying. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. And I'm going to bracket all of this to get to that later. Now, let's get to Brendan Carr's own words. He went on Biddy Johnson's podcast, which is more of a news show than it is a podcast. God bless him. He's a lot bigger than I am, but you know. In his own words, Brendan Carr is a supporter of Charlie Kirk and said that Kimmel's words were, quote, "the sickest conduct possible." He said that statement that I just read was the sickest conduct possible. Okay. Also, that he wanted to, quote, "reinvigorate public interest, the easy way or the hard way." And he wants the companies under him to, quote, "change their conduct." Based on those statements, do we see the irony here? If you don't, I'm going to spoon feed it to you here in a minute. But do we not see the irony in this bullshit? See, I'm not as upset about, because look, I'm not the biggest fan of Kimmel. There's a couple of things that he's done and said on his show in the last few years that I think is entertaining. I'm not going to say like, "Oh, I hate Jimmy Kimmel. Communist Kimmel. He is the fight." I'm not going to do that. But like, come on. Come on, dude. Where I'm the most upset about is just the blatant fucking lying, and honestly, it's just gay posturing to get into Trump's good graces. That's all any of this is. It's kissing the ring. Personally, I don't think, if you really want to understand where I'm at with Jimmy Kimmel, the last great public service he's done was back in 2015 when he premiered like the second trailer for Batman versus Superman. Like, that's the greatest thing he's done in my opinion. But other than that, get fucked. I don't know. Anyway. So they're basically trying to dog walk Jimmy Kimmel because of those statements that I read earlier. And then, again, just going to stick with the facts. I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but sticking with the facts. Trump himself, before we knew anything about Charlie Kirk's killer, Trump himself was out there saying that it was the left-wing ideology, it was the left side of the aisle's fault that he's dead, it was a leftist that killed him. He was saying that before we knew anything. So I'm not saying he's flat out lying, but he's also spewing rhetoric that, if you ask somebody, could be against the public interest, especially from the president. Now, what is Carr's definition of the public interest, right? Now, you have to remember is because the FCC is a government department, it is funded by taxpayers, right? And he basically wants, he considers the public interest to be wanting the local stations to give citizens what they want. Carr also mentioned in that interview that he also, he went down the line of these people on the left that were lying, but he only brought up the left-wing hoaxes, none of the right-wing stuff, of course. And he flat out said himself, this is coming from the chair of the FCC. You really can't overstate the importance of this. He wanted to win the battle of ideas. You don't want that coming from a federal fucking department, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want that. The government is not in the interest of winning a battle of ideas. If I keep doing this, I'm going to need a new paper before I even get all the way through this notepad. Whew. All right. And then let's see if I have any other. Okay. All right. So now we can get into my thoughts about this. Okay. So basically, they yanked Jimmy Kimmel's show because he made a false statement. Well, first of all, I think I should reiterate why I care about this. Why do I care about the First Amendment? Why do I care about the freedom of speech? For my own personal and selfish reasons, obviously I want to make a career out of being a podcaster. I want to make a career out of being a stand-up comedian. Free speech is pretty crucial. It's a pretty key part of that equation. If there's no freedom of speech, I can't do my podcast the way I do my I will never be a political talking head. I'm sorry. I will never be a political talking head, right? I will never be someone that's so entrenched on the right or the left. I think political parties are fucking gay, personally. But you need freedom of speech in a country, because then that's how civil discourse is done. That's how the incubation of ideas is conducted, so on and so forth. But I think you all, again, keep this in the back of your head when we're talking about this. This is not happening in a vacuum, right? This is not like the FCC chair woke up one day after the Charlie Kirk assassination. He's like, oh, we need to get Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, no. No, this is happening because the Trump administration, because they want to get in good grace with the Trump administration, and the Trump administration is putting pressure on them. This happened with the lawsuit, obviously, with ABC. This happened. This is why Stephen Colbert got yanked. It's being alleged. And now we're seeing it here. Now, there's a lot of irony in this situation. And there's a lot, it's not even irony. It's just flat out fucking hypocrisy that I want to talk about here. So they're yanking Jimmy Kimmel because he lied. Well, you got to understand where this statement was made. Now, I just want to say, too, that, the FCC is wrong for doing this. Flat out. They're wrong for doing this. Jimmy Kimmel, now I understand that the term comedian is a very fluid one, but Jimmy Kimmel's a comedian. He might be a corporate comedian. He might be a bought and paid for comedian by the left. He might be a very politically charged comedian. But at the end of the day, he's a late night talk show host. Excuse me. Sorry, I had to hear that. But he is a comedian, right? He was saying this during his opening comedic monologue. Now, am I going to sit here and say that those statements that he made were a joke? No, I'm not going to interpret that as a joke, but I am going to interpret that as free speech. I am going to say he has every right to do that. Now, I would be in total agreement with the FCC if they were like operating in a vacuum with no political agenda, no whatever, but of course they're not. Of course they're not. Like, none of this is passing the fucking smell test. So then you have to, with all of these situations that happen where it's politically charged and it's being led by the government, you really need to take this, and there needs, in my opinion, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but you need to be able to apply this across the board, right? An element of fairness needs to be applied here. So are we doing this moving forward? Are we going to start doing this retroactively? Are we going to see lawsuits? You know, what are we really talking about here? And it's obvious because the FCC does not just police ABC, CNN, MSNBC, whatever. They police every news channel. So are we going to start looking at Fox News? Are we going to start looking at those fucking idiots over there too? And saying, hey, if Fox News, if your guys start lying, because again, they're not just pulling this aside and saying like, hey, because he's a comedian. They're just saying because he's on the air and telling lies. So are we going to start looking at Fox News and saying, hey, you guys can't lie anymore? Now, look, if I was running the FCC, I would be like, hey, listen, you guys need to be doing fact-based reporting, not opinion-based reporting. And then the people who run those news stations need to be checking that, like, where are your sources, where are your whatever, not just opinion-based. And if you're going to do opinion-based, you need to state it as that. You need to state it as opinion-based. You can't just be, doing whatever. But let's just look at the last 30 fucking years in this country. Seriously. Fucking COVID, the global war on terror, Russiagate, Epstein, all of these hoaxes, or not hoaxes, just all of these events, right? All these events that these news outlets are reporting on, does it then apply to them too retroactively? Or are we just going to let all that fly? Was it just not, are we saying that the importance of the Jimmy Kimmel statements is more important than fucking GWAT or COVID? Like, if we all remember, I need to catch my breath here. Okay. So if we all remember during the COVID insanity, when Jon Stewart, he didn't have his show at the time, The Daily Show, great comedy political show in my opinion. Jon Stewart's the GOAT of all that kind of stuff. Jon Stewart went on Stephen Colbert. Now, we all understand that Stephen Colbert is very much aligned with the left. He's very much on their side, and he will say basically everything to make them look great. And up until recently, then he got fired anyway. Anyway. So there was this moment where Jon Stewart went on Stephen Colbert, and he was like, now at the time, just to put this into context, if you were out there saying that what is now confirmed to be the truth, at the time, it was the lab leak theory, if we remember that, right? If you were out there saying anything about the lab leak theory, if you were talking about gain-of-function research in a negative light, if you even brought up Robert Malone, my YouTube channel, mine, it's small now, it was smaller then. If you even spoke about Robert Malone and what he was saying on Joe Rogan, you got a flag. My YouTube account still has a flag from the COVID stuff. Just to put it into context here. He goes on Colbert and he's talking about how it's more likely than not that the COVID virus, COVID-19, came from the Wuhan lab. And his joke about it, which obviously is rung extremely true, was, hey, if I told you that there was, maybe I should explain the lab leak theory, which came true. Basically, there was this COVID research, like COVID virus research lab that was performing gain-of-function research that we funded, that Anthony Fauci had a heavy hand in, that he lied his ass off to Congress to, which is why I think he got a fucking pardon, by the way. saying that we didn't do the gain of function research, that the lab wasn't the reason, blah, 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 blah. And the lab had failed multiple inspections in the years prior to 2019 when the virus broke out. Like it became big in March of 2020, but it's alleged that it broke out in 2019. That's what all the research is showing. So he was on Stephen Colbert, and he was saying, you know, if I told you, his joke was, if I told you that there was a outbreak of chocolatey goodness in Hershey, Pennsylvania, would you guess that it was the local hospital or research labs, or would you guess it was the chocolate factory, right? And so and Stephen Colbert just kind of just sat there like, I don't know what to say about that. Oh no. So, you know, all I'm saying is, like, if the FCC is going to start clamping down on people for lying, well, what does this mean for fucking news anchors? What does this mean for comedians on any kind of channel on TV? Like, it's just so, you can't do this. Now, a point that I think this was brought up in the chat, I'll look at the chat here in a second, but a point a lot of people are bringing up too is like, well, Jimmy Kimmel, you know, he's not getting like criminally charged, he's just getting fired. And fair enough, that's a good point. But you have to remember that this is coming from a side of political pressure. We can't do this. We can't have like, I'm always, just me personally, I'm always for less government overwatch is better. Just categorically, it is better the less government overwatch we have. But we can't have this. Let's see if I had any other notes before I get into my other point. Yeah, so the free market. So if it is such a concern about these, let's broaden it so it's just TV personalities, because that's covering comedians, news anchors. If these TV personalities, if it really is such a concern, if it's such a concern that these people are lying, well, we've already, now it takes longer, obviously, but is the best way to do it. It's the organic way to do it. You need to let the free market bear this out on their own. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's just look at the last 5 years of entertainment. Let's put it that way. We'll knock the easy one out of the way. A lot of movie studios were putting out movies that had extremely woke ideologies, extremely left-wing ideologies that people didn't like, and those movies started tanking. Their quality tanked because of it too. You can get into the whole conversation of DEI. We're not going to do that here, but you can just see where that goes, right? So that's an easy way of the free market taking its own course in a quicker way. Let me see if I need this anymore. Do I need my laptop? No, I don't think so. Okay. So that's one way. But let's look at the bigger way, and it's the podcast situation of it all, right? So the legacy media had their grip on news reporting and basically informing the masses on what's going on up until about really since Trump started running, like 2016, 2017. And what we saw going into the pandemic, and then from there, because the pandemic, just like with a lot of other things in this country, accelerated conversations, right? And so the long story short of it is what you saw happening was you had people like, okay, well, obviously the government is lying to us, because this is starting to be not just the fringe movements of like the Alex Jones of the world or the quote unquote conspiracy theorists of the world. Excuse me. You had this going to the mainstream. It's like, okay, well, now the government's clearly lying to us, and I'm learning more from Joe Rogan about the COVID issue, from foreign affairs issues, because the guests he's having on, than I am from the news media. And it was completely antithetical to the whole format of the news platform, is they only have a couple of minutes to cover certain subjects. You only have a couple of minutes to interview people. But Joe Rogan is sitting down with people for hours on end, diving deep into these subjects, and they're just wiping the floor with these news outlets, with these legacy media outlets. And then from there, and I'm a perfect example of this, you go on Joe Rogan, you see all of these people talking about it, and then you go find their own work. You go find their own podcast where they go deeper into. That's where I find out about people like Dave Smith, Daryl Cooper, all that kind of stuff. And then in the last couple of years, when you see more on the right wing, the leftists try to do it a little bit, but they're just failing at it miserably, like with Gavin Newsom and Don Lemon. Like, they're failing miserably. But you see people on the right, like Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, where they're breaking away from the legacy media. Well, Tucker got fired, and I think Megyn just left. I don't remember what her story was. Well, I know she left Fox News after the whole scandal there. But I want to say she tried to return to media there a little bit. I don't know. Somebody fact check me about that. I'm not the biggest follower of Megyn Kelly. But my point is, they have their own independent sources. These are right-wing sources, but they're speaking out of a traditional right-wing view, such as like the global war on terror, Israel, government spending, all of these things that the right wing has been doing, and then they're speaking out against it. And a lot of people are following them because they're like, oh yeah, you're showing that you have common fucking sense, right? So what the reason I bring all of this up is you need to let the free market take its course. You need to let if you really claim to care, in my opinion, if you really claim to care about the customer, which is basically what they're saying here, the citizens, the customer, the whatever. If you really claim to care about these people, let them vote with their feet. Let them vote with their eyeballs. Let them vote with their time. Let them vote with their money. I promise you that eventually they will work these things out, and we're seeing this bear out in real time. Again, it takes longer, but we cannot have political pressure on entertainment. We cannot have political pressure on media. We have to be opposed to this. We cannot allow this to happen. We simply cannot allow this to happen. And Ted Cruz, of all people, that right-wing shill, he had a really good point. And I think it was on his own podcast. He was sitting down with, it doesn't say who he was sitting down with. It does not say who is sitting down, but I guess Ted Cruz has his own podcast called Verdict. And he basically, he made the analogy between the statements that Brennan Carr was making about, the easy way or the hard way. He was making the analogy between that and a mafioso boss out of like Goodfellas. Like, hey, isn't that, I'm horrible at accents, so forgive me. Hey, this is a nice bar you have here. Be a shame if something happened to it, eh? And then they start, cracking down on people. And that's basically what that was. He literally said, you can find it, just look up on YouTube, Brendan Carr, Benny Johnson, and he says it. These people are showing you their cards. You just have to look at it with a somewhat critical eye and a working fucking brain, which even I have. If I can do it, I promise you can do it. But he said it in his own words. The easy way or the hard way. They're showing you their hand, ladies and gentlemen. Don't play into it. Now, that's a perfect segue. So, of course, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, the right, just as I've explained pretty well, the right is trying to crack down on hate speech. Now, to all my friends on the right, you have to understand. You have to understand that they don't care about you. You need to understand this. That's one of the reasons I think political parties are gay. Gay. The right wing, just like the left wing, if you are their constituents, they do not fucking care about you. And I don't think this is hyperbolic to say. I don't think this is outlandish. I find it, based on his actions that we are seeing that are public in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder, I am not convinced that Donald Trump cares about Charlie Kirk all that much. We've all seen the examples. You can look up compilations. I'm not going to get into the details. But they don't care about you. And they are trying to clamp down on hate speech. Now, generally speaking, do I think hate speech is a negative? Yeah. But my definition of hate speech is different than yours probably. And your definition of hate speech is probably different than your coworkers. And your coworkers is different than their what. You see how this goes? Hate speech as a term. I really want to sink into this a little bit. Hate speech as a term is such a its definition is on a spectrum. Example, as some of you know, as I kind of espoused about, I did espouse about it last week. I'm a Christian, right? Not a very good one. I try to be the best that I can be, but you know, I went into that detail last week. I'm not getting into it now. But I'm a Christian. So the term Christ is King or Christ is Lord, to me, is not hate speech because I believe it. I think that is a positive thing. That is not hate speech to me. Now, I would imagine, I've never been in a synagogue before, but I would imagine that if you were to walk into a Jewish synagogue or a Jewish festival or a fucking, what do they call them? The bar mitzvah, a bat mitzvah or whatever, l'chaim or whatever, right? If you were to walk into a, if you were to walk into a Jewish gathering, I just would imagine that if you walked in there and you started yelling, Christ is King, I don't think they would approve of you very much. Some of them might even call that hate speech. But guess what? It ain't hate speech to you, but it is hate speech to them. So, that being said, hate speech is a very undefined term. It is purely based on emotions and feelings and that kind of stuff, right? Now, you get into something like a hate crime, right? A hate crime where you see a member of like the KKK or like the Latin Kings or the Bloods or the Crips, and they go kill somebody on an opposing, I'm just spitballing here, but they go and kill somebody on an opposing team, on an opposing race, obviously that's a fucking hate crime. Obviously, right? That's a pretty cut and dry thing. But we're talking about hate speech here. Hate speech is a very loosely defined term. And the right, I'm not even going to get into the Israel of it all, but the right is making an attempt to hijack and use, like there's that term, never let a tragedy go to waste, never let a, you know what I mean? They're doing that to you right now. Stay cognizant, stay aware, don't play into their hands. Now, I think that's a great transition to my next point that I want to touch on really quickly about the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination. There's a big worry from a lot of people, both from the left and the right, myself included, that there was going to be some, let's just call it civil disruption, some civil unrest in the wake of his assassination. Thankfully, there has not been. So kudos to you guys on the right. Good job. I saw a lot of right-wing commentators saying that, you know, violence is not good. Don't do this. Whether or not you follow their direct advice, the fact that people didn't do it, they didn't do it. Good job. Seriously, good job. I'm glad that didn't happen. That could have gone really bad really quick. If I had to make a guesstimation, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Now, they are holding a massive vigil, or not even a vigil. I think it's his actual funeral proceedings at that big at big stadium out in Arizona. I believe it's tomorrow. Yeah, it's tomorrow on the 21st. Hopefully nothing happens there. I've been reading that they're going to have like Super Bowl times 10 level security. I hope so. A lot of high profile people are going to be there. Ooh, hopefully nothing bad happens there. That's all I'm saying. I'm not even saying like some deep state shit. I'm just saying some like lone gunmen, because copycats are a thing, you know? So hoping and praying that nothing happens there. The last point that I want to touch on out of this is not for nothing. And I'm not trying to pin the left against the right. I'm just trying to call balls and strikes as I see them. And I feel like a lot of you will agree with me on this. Now, the right, obviously, not even the right, just a lot of people last week were horrified, not just at the killing of Charlie Kirk a week and a half ago, but they were appalled, disgusted, obviously myself included, at the responses from people on the hyper left that were cheering on his death. Okay. Now, I'm not even saying this anecdotally. I'm saying this from people on my timeline. I could name names right now. I'm not going to, because that's just not the game that I play. But I could name names right now of people that were at best apathetic to the murder, at its worst celebrating it, that are now turning around and they are losing their fucking minds. They are up in arms. They are starting petitions. They are canceling subscriptions. They are outspoken as they've ever been. You would think that Jimmy Kimmel got killed. In the way that these people are responding to a guy losing his job. That's all that happened. I promise you, unless he just suddenly loses all his money, I promise you Jimmy Kimmel is going to be okay. I would even wager he'll be back on the air inside 45 days. But these people are losing their minds about this guy losing or getting suspended, right? Losing his job. When just a week and a half ago, you motherfuckers were celebrating murder. Murder. You people were celebrating death. A public execution. All because the guy said some things you didn't enjoy and because he's on the other side of the aisle. Listen, I'm not trying to pin the right against the left, but you fucking idiots proved everybody right. When these people were out here calling you, myself included, I'm not even going to say these people. When people like me were out here calling you soulless, demons, evil, you proved us right. You proved us right that your priorities are so out of whack that you're going to get so emotionally bent out of shape about a guy losing his job more than a dude getting publicly executed. You proved us right. Okay, it's falling out of my mouth. Because I posted this thing, and I don't think, maybe it got misconstrued and like bent out of shape, or not bent out of shape, but it got misconstrued. I posted a reel from the episode last week saying that I don't want to hear shit about Gaza from you people anymore. You proved me fucking right. You proved me right. You vindicated me and everybody else about you people. You've shown us your true colors. What do I mean by that? So let me just clarify. Let me clarify my statements about Gaza. If you are celebrating murder of an innocent person or innocent people in any kind of way, you don't get to virtue signal about Gaza. You keep Gaza out of your fucking mouth. You don't get to do that, personally, in my opinion. Because it's so hypocritical. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm not whatever. But it's just, you're showing your fucking true colors here. And it's just a matter of priorities here. If you can celebrate the death, because Charlie Kirk was an innocent person. He got killed for no reason, for no crime. If you can celebrate that and then turn around and say, oh, poor Gaza, you have no idea what you're talking about, and you're just another fucking retard talking head. I'm sorry. You're just fucking retarded. You really are. And then, because then you do that, and then you turn around and you fucking lose your mind about a millionaire losing his job. More than you were ever upset. I need to turn down my audio, I think, a little bit. More than you were ever upset about Kirk getting killed. Just these ideological fucking, these wires are getting crossed. None of this connects. None of this makes sense. You're stupid. You are stupid. Now, please, if you are one of these people that I just described and you think that I'm wrong, first of all, I doubt that you're watching this show anyway, live at least. But if you're watching this show, you know how to get a hold of me. I have a social media presence. Come find me. Tell me I'm wrong. Call me on Instagram, shoot me a message, comment on this video, tell me I'm wrong. Because it doesn't make any fucking sense. You proved everybody right. That's all I want to say, is you guys proved everybody right. And you just really need to reevaluate your priorities in life, reevaluate what you hold dear, because you're getting it all wrong. Like, it's going to be, if you've been watching this podcast for a while, or even recently, and I hope if you know me as a person, I really do my best to not work in absolutes, and I really do my best to not claim a moral or academic or an intellectual high ground. Like, I really do my best to not do that. You know what I mean? I do my best to not claim that I'm better than anybody else, because I don't believe that I am. I truly don't believe that I'm better than anybody else. We're all just humans trying to figure this out, man. But I can say with a deep level of certainty that if you are one of the people that I just described, you are wrong. You are on the wrong side of history. Do some soul searching of whatever left you have of a soul and shape the fuck up. That's all I'm going to say. I think that's all I wanted to cover today. Yeah, I think we covered some good subjects. I'm going to go over the chat really quick, see if there's anything that I feel like should be let's take a look here. Let's just take a look here. Thank you to everybody that was watching, by the way. Really, really appreciate it. I'm just going to scroll through the chat here. Okay, read all that. Okay. Oh yeah, I just wanted to say, Tyler, you brought this up in the chat. I just wanted to say that, like, Kimmel said way worse. Like, the one that came to mind immediately was when during COVID, when they were talking about, you know, the lack of beds in hospitals and the lack of ventilators, and he was like, look, if I had to choose between a vaccinated and an unvaccinated person getting medical treatment, sorry, Wheezy. Do we all remember that? So let's break that down for a second. Basically, what he's saying is, I wouldn't say he's necessarily advocating. You could make that argument. But at a bare minimum, he's complacent with the death of Americans. And even, let's break that down a little bit further. Do you think there are zero people on the left that didn't take the vaccine? I guarantee you there's a few people on the left that did not take that vaccine. So I'm just saying, he just, those statements about Tyler Robinson were some of the most benign shit, in my opinion. It's going through the chat. Ooh, Allison, what's up, dude? If bad jokes were about to be illegal, I have very... If bad jokes are about to be illegal, I have bad news about open mics. Yeah, for real. Every right to say it. Nobody arrested him. He doesn't right to have a platform. Yeah, you are correct. Kind of covered that already, but you're correct. Yeah, that's why satellite is so important, or so it's like a game changer. And that's why like stuff like YouTube and Rumble and all that, that's so crazy. I'm really thinking about like biting the bullet and just paying $15 a month to get on, what's it called? I think it's called Restream, where I can like live stream to YouTube, Rumble, all that stuff. I'm really thinking about doing that. We'll see though. We'll see if I want to spend more money on this fucking podcast. Okay. 100% free market. Thank you. Kimmel doesn't have a right to a platform, but he has gotten away with saying way worse. Yep. Slippery slope. Yep, for sure. Yep. Just reading down here. Bad path. I agree. Okay. Yep, I agree. Celebrating death is a problem. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to. That's really all I really wanted to get into today. If you are watching the episode, please just take a couple seconds and press the like button. Please press the like button. It really does help the algorithm. Likes really helps. Shares really help. Obviously, you don't have to share the episode. Because I know that let's just call it what it is. If you're sharing a podcast episode to your channel, if you're or to like your page, to your feed, I understand that that's like co-signing what they're saying. I totally understand that, but it's just like the video. It's anonymous. I would really appreciate that. Tomorrow's episode is going to be a really good one. It was recorded about a month and a half ago with Jared Ostrom, local Albuquerque comedian, very funny guy, awesome guy. That'll be out tomorrow. And then I believe we're doing a show at Rio Bravo Brewing here in Albuquerque on Saturday of next week. I'm not sure. Waiting to hear back from AJ about that. Yeah, I've heard about Kick. I'm thinking about that too. Try to think of upcoming news. I'm going to try to do this I'm going to do this every Saturday at 11 a.m. Next Saturday, it might be at 10:30. We'll see. My 10:30 or 10, but I'll update you guys there. I really enjoy doing this. I really appreciate all of you guys tuning in. I'll see you back here next week. I'm going to eat some food because I'm fucking starving. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. I really do appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. And we will see you next week. Don't forget about the episode tomorrow. Bye, everybody.